I was standing in front of the mirror, makeup still fresh, heels digging slightly into the floor, and for the first time in my life, I didn't recognize the man staring back at me. Not because he looked strange, but because he looked honest. And that's when I realized, if I stepped out of that room, my marriage would never be the same again. This was about a lie I'd been telling myself for over a decade, a lie so convincing, so carefully constructed, that I'd forgotten I was even telling it. But to understand why that moment nearly broke me open, why it simultaneously terrified and liberated me, I have to take you back to who I used to be. Back to the version of Owen who thought he had everything figured out. Back to the man who was slowly drowning while everyone around him thought he was swimming. My name is Owen, and I'm 26 years old. 3 years ago, I married the love of my life, and I thought that single act would be enough to prove I'd made it, that I'd done everything right, that I'd become the man I was supposed to be. But let me back up even further, because the story really starts long before Ariana. It starts in high school. I was that guy. You know the one. The loud one who filled every room he entered. The funny one who always had a joke ready, a comeback prepared, a performance queued up. People gravitated toward me. They laughed at my jokes. They assumed I had life figured out because I moved through the world with what looked like confidence. And I believed them. I built an entire identity around being unshakable. And I was good at it, so I became an entrepreneur. Not because I stumbled into it, not because I had some viral idea or generational wealth to fall back on, but because I chose it. Because it felt like the only way I could breathe. And for a while, it worked. I was building something, I was growing something, I was proving to myself and everyone around me that I could do it, that I could succeed on my own terms. And then I met Ariana. Ariana was different from anyone I'd ever met. She was a law graduate, brilliant, grounded, disciplined in ways I'd never been. She had this quiet strength about her, this emotional intelligence that made you feel seen without feeling exposed. When we talked, it felt effortless. We challenged each other without tearing each other down. We laughed easily. We understood each other's silences. We just clicked. And that clicking felt like proof. Proof that I was doing everything right. Proof that my loud, charismatic, unshakable performance was working. Proof that I'd become the man I was supposed to be. I was so proud when I married her. Not just proud of her, though I absolutely was, but proud of myself. Proud that someone like Ariana would choose someone like me. Proud that I'd achieved this milestone that society tells you is the ultimate validation of your worth as a man. I thought marrying Ariana meant I'd made it. I thought our love was solid enough, strong enough, deep enough to withstand anything. I thought wrong. The first year of marriage was good. Not perfect. No marriage is, but good. We were building a life together. We were figuring out our rhythms. We were learning how to be partners instead of just lovers. But somewhere in the second year, something started to shift. My business was growing, which should have been a good thing. But growth comes with pressure. It comes with longer hours. It comes with more stress, more responsibility, more weight on your shoulders. And I did what I'd always done. I carried it alone. I didn't talk to Ariana about the sleepless nights spent worrying about cash flow. I didn't tell her about the clients who were late on payments or the projects that weren't going as planned. I didn't let her see the fear that was building inside me, the constant anxiety that maybe I'd made a mistake. Maybe I wasn't cut out for this. Maybe I was gonna fail. I just smiled. I just performed. I just kept telling everyone, including myself, that I was fine. But I wasn't fine. And the pressure started leaking out in other ways. I became irritable, short-tempered. I nagged Ariana about small things, things that didn't matter, things I would have laughed off a year earlier. I criticized, I snapped, I withdrew. I told myself I was just stressed. I told myself every entrepreneur goes through this. I told myself it would pass once the business stabilized. But it didn't pass. It got worse. Our love life took a massive hit. The intimacy that had once felt effortless started to feel like work. We stopped touching the way we used to, those casual touches throughout the day, the hand on the small of her back, the kiss on the forehead for no reason at all. We stopped laughing together. We stopped having those deep, rambling conversations that stretched late into the night. We became polite, cordial, like roommates who got along fine but didn't really connect anymore. And the worst part? I convinced myself this was normal. I told myself every marriage goes through rough patches. I told myself this was just what happened when real life set in, when the honeymoon phase ended, when you had to focus on building a future instead of just enjoying the present. I told myself I was being realistic, practical, mature. But I was lying. I was drowning, and I was too proud to admit it. Ariana isn't the type to sit back and let things deteriorate without trying to fix them. She tried everything. She initiated conversations. She asked me how I was feeling, what I was thinking, what was going on inside my head. I gave her nothing. Just surface-level responses. I'm fine. Just work stuff. Nothing to worry about. She planned date nights. She made reservations at restaurants we used to love. She suggested weekend getaways, movie nights, anything to reconnect. I showed up physically but not emotionally. I was there, but I wasn't present. She showed patience I absolutely didn't deserve. She reassured me. She told me she loved me. She told me we'd get through this together. And I kept shutting her out. Then one night, about 6 months ago, she said something that made my blood run cold. We were sitting on the couch. The TV was on, but neither of us was watching. She turned to me, and I could see she'd been thinking about this for a while, rehearsing it in her head, trying to find the right words. "Owen," she said softly, "what if we tried something different?" I looked at her, confused. "Like what?" She hesitated, just for a second, and then she said it. "What if you explored your feminine side?" The words hung in the air like smoke. I waited for her to laugh, to tell me she was joking, to take it back. But she didn't. She kept going. "I mean, what if you tried makeup, or wore a dress? Or heels? What if you let yourself explore that softer side of yourself?" I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I didn't know what else to do. The laugh was defensive, sharp, cutting. It was the kind of laugh designed to shut down a conversation before it can even start. "Ariana, come on," I said, still laughing, still performing. "Men aren't supposed to be soft. That's not how this works." But even as I said it, even as I dismissed her completely, something inside me stirred. Not agreement, not yet, but curiosity. And that curiosity terrified me more than anything else, because if I let myself be curious, if I let myself wonder what it might feel like to explore that side of myself, then I'd have to admit that maybe she was right. Maybe I'd been hiding something. Maybe the performance I'd been giving for my entire life was exactly that, a performance. So I shut it down. I changed the subject. I went back to pretending everything was fine, and Ariana, being Ariana, didn't push. She just nodded quietly and let it go. But I could see the disappointment in her eyes. Not disappointment in my answer, but disappointment that I wasn't willing to try, that I wasn't willing to be vulnerable, that I wasn't willing to let her in. And that look haunted me. What I didn't realize then was that my reaction hurt her more than my answer. The weeks after that conversation were some of the worst of my life. I couldn't stop thinking about what she'd said. Makeup, dresses, heels. Every day I told myself I was fine, and every night my body told me I was lying, so I kept drowning in silence. About 2 weeks after Ariana's suggestion, I went out with my friend Daniel. It wasn't planned. I'd had a particularly frustrating day at work. A client had backed out of a big project at the last minute, and I was spiraling. I texted Daniel, asked if he wanted to grab a beer, and he said yes. We met at our usual spot. Nothing fancy. Just a neighborhood bar with good beer and low lighting. We ordered. We talked about surface-level stuff, sports, work, the usual. And then Daniel started talking about his wife. His whole face lit up when he mentioned her. He talked about how she'd been bringing this new energy into their relationship lately. How she'd been more playful, more spontaneous, more fun. "She just knows how to bring me back to myself, you know," he said, smiling into his beer. "Like when I'm stressed or shutting down, she finds these little ways to remind me that life doesn't have to be so heavy all the time." I nodded, but I wasn't really listening. I was thinking about Ariana, about how she'd been trying to do exactly that for me, and I'd been refusing every single attempt. Daniel must have noticed my expression change because he asked, "You good, man?" And I wasn't planning to open up. I really wasn't. But something about that moment, the beer, the low lighting, the fact that Daniel was talking about his wife with so much genuine love, cracked something open in me. "My love life is taking a huge hit," I said quietly. Daniel set his beer down, giving me his full attention. I told him about the distance between Ariana and me. I told him about the frustration I'd been carrying. I told him I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't tell him about Ariana's suggestion. Not at first. But Daniel, being Daniel, asked the right question. Has Ariana said anything about what might help? I hesitated, took a long drink, tried to decide whether I was really going to say this out loud, and then I did. She mentioned makeup, heels, and dresses, I whispered. I don't know why I whispered. We were in a crowded bar, no one was listening to us. But the words felt too big, too vulnerable, too dangerous to say at full volume. I waited for Daniel to laugh, to make a joke, to tell me that was weird or strange or not something men do. But he didn't. He just looked at me thoughtfully for a moment, took another sip of his beer, and then said the words that changed everything. Maybe it isn't a bad idea, actually. I stared at him. What? Yeah, man. Women know better sometimes. Maybe you should try it out. The world tilted slightly. This was Daniel, my friend since college. The guy who played basketball every weekend, who worked in construction, who seemed like the last person who would ever suggest something like this. And yet here he was, completely calm, completely casual, telling me that maybe my wife was right. You really think so? I asked. He shrugged. Look, I don't know all the details, but if your wife thinks it might help, what do you have to lose? Worst case, you try it, it doesn't work, and you move on. Best case, it helps. Either way, you're doing something instead of just drowning. I didn't respond. I couldn't, because he was right, and that terrified me. I barely slept that night. I kept replaying the conversation with Daniel over and over in my head. Makeup, heels, dresses. I tried to imagine what it would feel like. I tried to imagine sitting in front of a mirror while Ariana applied makeup to my face. I tried to imagine putting on a dress, heels, looking at myself transformed. Part of me was horrified by the images. But part of me, a part I'd been suppressing for so long, was curious. What would it feel like to be soft? To let go of the constant performance of masculinity? To explore a side of myself I'd been taught to keep locked away? I thought about all the messages I'd absorbed over the years. Men don't cry. Men don't show emotion. Men don't explore femininity. Men are strong, hard, unshakable. But where had those messages gotten me? I was drowning in stress and refusing to let anyone help me. Maybe strength wasn't what I thought it was. Maybe strength wasn't about being hard. Maybe it was about being honest. Maybe it was about being brave enough to explore the parts of yourself that scare you. By the time the sun came up, I'd made a decision. I was terrified. I was uncertain. I had no idea what would happen. But I was going to try. Sunday morning arrived quietly. Ariana was sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling through her phone, sipping coffee. The morning light was streaming through the windows, soft and golden. It was such a normal scene, such an ordinary moment. But I knew what I was about to say would change everything. I sat down across from her. My hands were shaking slightly, so I clasped them together on the table. She looked up, noticed my expression, and immediately put her phone down. Owen? You okay? I took a breath. How about I try on the feminine dress and heels you've always mentioned? The words came out in a rush, like if I didn't say them all at once I'd lose my nerve. Ariana's eyes widened slightly. She set her coffee cup down carefully, like she was afraid any sudden movement might shatter the moment. Really? She asked softly. I nodded, then quickly added, just for fun. I needed to qualify it. I needed to give myself an escape route. I needed to pretend this was just a casual experiment and not something that felt monumentally important. But Ariana saw right through me. She smiled. Not a small smile, but a huge, genuine, joyful smile that lit up her entire face. And the makeup too, she said, her voice almost breathless with excitement. I really want to see how you look in all of it. And just like that, it was real. We were doing this. And there was no turning back now. What happened next surprised me more than anything else that day. Ariana stood up, took my hand, and led me to our bedroom. She went straight to the closet and started pulling things out. Not frantically, not hesitantly, but with the confidence of someone who'd been prepared for this moment. She'd already picked out an outfit. A long-sleeve purple top with a swirling galaxy-style print. A high-waisted gray miniskirt. Sheer tights. Black platform heels. She'd already thought about the makeup she wanted to use. She'd already imagined how this would go. It hit me then with the force of a revelation. She'd been waiting for me to say yes. Not waiting impatiently or resentfully, but waiting hopefully. Waiting for me to be ready. waiting for me to arrive at this moment on my own terms. She led me to the bathroom, where she'd already set up what looked like a professional makeup station. Brushes, palettes, sponges, products I couldn't even name, all laid out with careful precision. If I walked away at that moment, everything would stay the same. "Sit," she said gently, gesturing to the chair she'd placed in front of the mirror. I sat, and the transformation began. Ariana stood behind me, surveying her canvas with the focus of an artist about to create something meaningful. "Close your eyes," she said softly. I did. The first touch of the brush against my skin made me flinch, not because it hurt, but because it was so unexpectedly intimate. The bristles were soft, barely there, like a whisper against my cheek. She was applying primer, she explained, to help everything else go on smoothly. Her movements were slow, deliberate, gentle. She wasn't rushing. She was savoring this, and so was I. "Foundation next," she murmured, more to herself than to me. I felt the cool product against my skin, then the gentle pressure of a beauty sponge pressing it into my face. She worked in small, bouncing motions, blending carefully, making sure everything looked natural. The scent of the makeup filled the small bathroom, powder and floral, and something slightly chemical but not unpleasant. It was a scent I'd smelled on Ariana 1,000 times, but experiencing it on myself was entirely different. Every touch felt like permission. Permission to be soft. Permission to be explored. Permission to stop pretending. She moved to concealer next, dabbing small dots under my eyes and blending them in with her ring finger. The gentlest finger, she told me, the one that won't tug at the delicate skin. Then came the powder, applied with a large, fluffy brush that tickled slightly as it swept across my face. She dusted it across my forehead, down my nose, across my cheeks, under my chin. "Blush now," she said, and I heard her open a compact. "This is going to give you a little warmth, a little life to your cheeks." The blush brush was smaller, denser. She swirled it in the compact and then applied it to the apples of my cheeks in small circular motions, building the color slowly. I could feel myself relaxing into the process. The initial nervousness was fading, replaced by something else. Curiosity, yes, but also something deeper. Acceptance. I was accepting this. I was allowing this. I was letting myself be transformed. "Eyes next," Ariana said, and her voice had taken on this quiet reverence, like she was performing a ritual. She told me to keep my eyes closed but to relax my face completely. I felt her fingertip against my eyelid, applying what she called eye primer. Then came the eyeshadow. Soft, neutral tones, she said. Nothing too dramatic for the first time. The brush moved across my eyelids in sweeping motions. She layered the colors carefully, blending between each application. I felt her switch brushes multiple times, a fluffy one for blending, a smaller one for more precise application. "I'm going to do a little eyeliner," she said. "Just a very thin line, nothing crazy. I need you to stay very still." I froze, barely breathing, as I felt the tip of the eyeliner pencil trace along my upper lash line. It felt strange, not painful, just foreign, like my eye wanted to flutter shut completely but couldn't. I felt the mascara wand brush against my upper lashes. She applied it in small, wiggling motions, coating each lash from root to tip. "Lips now," she said. "I'm going to keep it subtle, just a muted color that enhances your natural lip tone." She applied lip liner first, tracing the edges of my lips with careful precision. Then came the lipstick, applied with a brush in smooth, even strokes. She blotted it with tissue, then applied a second layer. "And finally," she said, stepping back, "a little bit of setting spray to make sure everything stays in place." I felt the cool mist hit my face, and then Ariana's hands gently patting it into my skin. "Okay," she said, her voice almost breathless. "Makeup is done, but keep your eyes closed for just a minute longer. Let me get you dressed, and then you can see the full transformation all at once." Still with my eyes closed, Ariana guided me to stand. "Arms up," she said. I raised my arms, and I felt her slide something soft and slightly stretchy over my head. The fabric was smooth against my skin, fitted but not tight. It was the purple galaxy top. I could feel the slight texture of the print even without seeing it. Next came the skirt and the tights. I sat down, and she helped me into them with the same care she'd shown the entire time. "Last but not least," Ariana said, and I heard her pick up the heels. The heels forced my posture to change. My back straightened, my shoulders went back, my hips shifted. I felt elegant, feminine, powerful in a completely different way than I'd ever felt before. "Your hair looks perfect as it is," Ariana said, running her fingers through my medium-length, naturally curly brown hair, fluffing it slightly so it framed my face. She took a step back, and I heard her inhale sharply. "Owen," she whispered, "you look absolutely beautiful." I opened my eyes, and I didn't recognize the person in the mirror. Not because they looked strange, not because they looked wrong, but because they looked honest. My skin looked smooth, flawless, with a subtle glow. The soft blush on my cheeks gave me warmth, made me look alive in a way I hadn't looked in months. My eyes were defined, but not overdone. Subtle shadow, a thin line of eyeliner, mascara that made my lashes look longer and fuller. The muted lip color enhanced my natural lip tone without being dramatic. The makeup was soft and natural, but it changed everything. I looked beautiful, not feminine in a way that erased who I was, but feminine in a way that revealed something I'd been hiding. I looked soft, I looked vulnerable, I looked honest. I looked like myself for the first time in years. Ariana stepped up behind me, wrapping her arms around my waist, resting her chin on my shoulder, so we were both looking at my reflection together. "There you are," she whispered, and then she said the words that broke me completely open. "That's the man I fell in love with." I walked to the full-length mirror in our bedroom, wanting to see the whole look from a distance. The transformation was complete. I wasn't pretending. I wasn't performing. I was finally present. For the first time in my entire life, I was seeing myself clearly. And the man I saw, soft, vulnerable, honest, beautiful, wasn't less than the man I'd been pretending to be. He was more. He was whole. We didn't leave the house that weekend. We didn't need to. This transformation wasn't about being seen by the world. It wasn't about making some public statement or proving something to anyone else. It was about being seen by Ariana. And more importantly, being seen by myself. I wore the outfit for hours. Not because Ariana asked me to, but because I wanted to. Because it felt right. Because every time I caught my reflection, I felt this quiet sense of rightness that I'd been missing for years. We talked more that weekend than we had in months. Real conversations. Honest conversations. Conversations where I didn't perform or pretend or hide. Sunday evening came too quickly. As much as I'd enjoyed the weekend, as transformative as it had been, I knew I couldn't wear the outfit forever. Monday was coming. Work was coming. Real life was coming. But something had fundamentally shifted. When I finally changed back into my regular clothes, jeans, a t-shirt, sneakers, I felt different, not diminished, not like I was going back to performing. But different in a good way. The clothes were different, but I was the same. The honesty I'd found in the makeup and heels and skirt wasn't tied to those physical things. It was tied to the permission I'd given myself. Permission to be soft. Permission to be vulnerable. Permission to be honest. I looked at myself in the mirror, no makeup, regular clothes, just me, and I still saw the same person I'd seen in full transformation. Honest, present, whole. Ariana noticed the difference too. "You're still there," she said, smiling. "Yeah," I said. "I am." The changes didn't happen overnight, but they were real. I started communicating better with Ariana. When I felt stressed or overwhelmed or afraid, I told her instead of shutting down. I let her in instead of keeping her at arm's length. The anger and irritability that had been plaguing me for months started to fade. I became more patient, not just with Ariana, but with myself. Our intimacy returned, not just physically, but emotionally. We became partners again, real partners who supported each other and saw each other clearly. My business didn't magically become easier. The challenges didn't disappear, the stress didn't vanish. But I handled it differently. I stopped carrying everything alone. I talked to Ariana about my fears and frustrations. I asked for help when I needed it. I admitted when I didn't have all the answers. I stopped performing strength and started living it. Real strength, I learned, isn't about being unshakable. It's about being honest. It's about being vulnerable. It's about having the courage to explore the parts of yourself that scare you. I didn't wear the outfit again for several weeks after that first weekend. But when I did, it felt natural. It felt right. Ariana and I made it a monthly ritual. One weekend a month, I'd transform. We'd spend the time reconnecting, being honest, exploring the side of me that I'd kept hidden for so long. And each time, I learned something new about myself. I learned that femininity isn't weakness. I learned that softness isn't failure. I learned that exploring these parts of myself didn't make me less of a man. It made me more of a person. More whole, more honest, more alive. That weekend changed my life. I didn't stop being a man that weekend. I stopped being a stranger to myself. Not because I wore makeup and heels and a skirt, though I did, and it was powerful, but because I finally stopped lying to myself. For 26 years, I'd been performing a version of masculinity that I thought was required. I'd been hiding parts of myself that didn't fit the narrow definition of what a man was supposed to be. I'd built an entire identity around being loud, confident, unshakable, and in the process, I'd become a stranger to myself. That weekend gave me permission to stop performing. It gave me permission to be soft, to be vulnerable, to be curious about who I actually am instead of who I've been told I should be. I learned that strength and softness aren't opposites. They're partners. I learned that masculinity isn't a performance. It's not about being hard or aggressive or unfeeling. Real masculinity is about being honest, about being whole, about having the courage to be all of who you are, not just the parts that society approves of. I learned that intimacy requires vulnerability. And I learned that when you finally allow yourself to be seen, really seen, fully seen, honestly seen, that's when you start to live. Not perform, live. So let me ask you something. Have you ever hidden a part of yourself just to survive? Have you ever felt like you're performing instead of living? What would happen if you allowed yourself to be seen, fully, honestly, without apology? Not just by the people around you, but by yourself. Because here's what I learned that weekend. You deserve to be seen. You deserve to be whole. You deserve to live authentically, not performatively. And the courage to be honest, to explore, to question, to be vulnerable, that's not weakness. That's the bravest thing you can do. So take the risk. Be brave. Be honest. Be seen. Your life is waiting. The end. The Gender Diary exists to light that path with shared stories. Whether you found connection in this narrative, you're on your own journey of gender exploration, or you're here seeking understanding, your subscription fuels our mission. Every subscriber empowers us to keep illuminating these authentic experiences for our community. Kindly drop a comment below. Your voice adds to the tapestry of experiences that makes this space meaningful. Until our next story unfolds.